point, my maternal grandmother began to clamor. Oh, she wants her grandchildren. They would look after us and all that. So, because, at that point, they probably saw the Akishetes as my paternal side, since they're from Ondo also. So it was agreed. The army came back, moved us again, gave my uncle Bashiru the keys to my mother's little bungalow in Oshodi, off Agege Motor Road in Lagos, and handed us over to him, my younger brother Goki and I. They had just established Army Children's School and Barracks Yaba. Here it's now called Command Children's School. So we were registered there. The school bus, the army bus, would come all the way from Yaba to Oshodi. That would be his last stop, and pick us up to school and bring us back. So we moved in with Uncle Bashir and his family. At that time, he had just 2 children. He ended up with, how many? Yomi, the 2 girls. He ended up with 5. But at that time, he had 2, and there was 2 of us, my brother and I, moved on with him. But it was a couple of years of nightmare. It's nightmare.
You were almost poisoned.
Yes, I was. They had a houseboy called Bassi. And one day, for some reason, Bassi gave me food without soup. I think it was eba or fufu, I can't remember. But since that time, eba and fufu, my enemies, I don't go near eba and fufu. It just reminds me, it takes me back to that. Yes, you won't see me near it. So, Bassi gave me food. He didn't give me soup. My cousins and my younger brother were playing outside the house. Very close window, playing football. I had done some housework, and then that was why I didn't eat at the same time my cousins and my brother ate. So I sat down and wondered why I had no soup. And then he took like a cane, a whip, and asked me to start eating. I began to eat and I began to throw up.
How old were you?
7 maybe. I began to eat and I began to throw up. As I was throwing up, Bassi was asking me to pack it up again and eat it. I sat on the floor.
Where was your uncle?
He had gone to work. He was working with Drum Publications at the time, the magazine. His wife too was working somewhere, I can't remember. They had both gone to work. I still feel that my mother's spirit. I'm supposed to be a born-again Christian, right? I'm not supposed to believe in spirits after the death. But I still believe by some reason my mother's spirit was there. Why was I throwing it up? Why wasn't I swallowing the poison? Why didn't I die? So as I was eating and throwing up, he was beating me. I was getting weak. At some point, he took off his trousers. Wanted to have me. I was 7. And then I screamed with my last energy. Luckily, my cousins and my brother were peeping through the window, wanting to come in to use the restroom. That was what saved me.
You were in the restroom?
No. They wanted to come into the house to use the restroom. So, like I said, I was sitting on the floor by a passage near the same window where, that looked outside where they were playing. So they came in and Bassi pulled up his trousers. There was an old man in the next house. He's dead now. Alaji Alfa. My younger brother saw me, ran to the next house to report to the old man. My younger brother was, if I was 7, then he was 5. Alfa came and they took me. There were no phones, no phone calls. They waited. The Alfa knew my mother's second brother. My mother had 2 brothers. There were 3 of them. My mom, the first, Uncle Latif, the second, Uncle Bashir, who we lived with, the third. So he reached out to Uncle Latif. The next day, Uncle Latif came. No, that same day, took me away. We had other uncles, cousins of my mom. Mr. Obisheson, he worked with Liver Brothers. He was a top manager with Liver Brothers, and a few other Alaji this and Alaji that, my mom's cousins. Like I said, my mom was Muslim. And they called Bassi. Called my uncle, called his wife. Bassi, why did you give her food without soup? Why did you? Bassi said, my uncle's wife had given him some substance to put in my food, to eat. Substance, poison. And that he just felt, well, if I was going to die anyway, what was the harm in having what he wanted to have with me? Of course, my uncle's wife denied it. My uncle denied it. Well, at that point, it was decided by the family that we be moved away from Uncle Bashiru in my mother's house to Uncle Latif, my mom's second brother. Uncle Latif had lived in London. I don't know if deportation was the in thing at the time, but he came back. And he didn't have like a high-collared job or anything, but he had love. He lived in Abule Oja in the Yaba area of Lagos in one room, but we found love with him. So my younger brother and I were moved to him. He wasn't married then, but he had a woman he was seeing. He said he just went to her and said, Betty, will you marry me for the sake of my sister's children so that you can help me look after them? She married him. She was from Delta State, half caste actually, half Oyinbo, half Delta. She married him and we moved in with them. They had just one bed, one room. They slept on the floor while my brother and I took their bed. So that was round where? Round 3, 4, where we lived, 5? The count still goes on.
Traumatic moments.
Yes.
Do you still feel the trauma?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, I do. I loved him. And when he died, I gave him a hero's burial. Before he died, he had had children in the UK and he had lost contact with them. Like I said, he came home. I took him back to the UK a bunch of times to try and look for his family. Well, we never found them. Maybe they didn't even bear his surname because he had left a long time ago. He had 3 children, but we couldn't find them. He died. But before he died, I had grown up. And living with him, after a few years, it was time to go to secondary school. I got admitted into 2 schools in Lagos, 1 in Ibadan. I chose to come to Ibadan to be away from everything.
Ejide Grammar School?
Yes, Ejide Girls Grammar School, to be away from everything. So I was in boarding house. Luckily, all the principals knew me, knew my story. Mrs. Omishade, whose husband, I guess, was a politician, Chief Michael Omishade. Mrs. Onitiri, Mrs. Adebekun, the various principals at different times. They loved me. But you see, I was a disturbed child. I was not mentally disturbed, but I was an unhappy child. Opening days, visiting days, nobody would really visit me. Sometimes, yes, my uncle would come from Lagos, but not all the time. I thank General Olufemi Olutoye and his late wife, Professor Olori Omotayo Olutoye, for the part they played in my life at that point. They used to call them federal commissioners then, minister, right? They call them ministers now. On days when they came to visit me in Yejide on visiting day, I would be like walking on the moon. Oh boy, with the soldiers driving the car and me, I had this visitor. I'd be so happy I'll be walking on air because people hardly visited me.
The army never abandoned you?
No, they didn't.
The army took you to school?
Yes, primary school, secondary school, up until end of 1st degree. Although they didn't continue mine in when I left America, but it was okay. Ondo State government also gave us some buffers, yes. You know, because I didn't tell them the problem I had with the lecturer, so but it's okay. They did very well.
What happened to Uncle Bashir?
He died. Eventually, they denied it, like I said. Bassi was, I don't know if he was sent to jail or sent away. But Uncle Bashir continued to live in my mom's house with his wife. He had more children. He ended up with 5. So, over a decade down the line, I got my lawyer to write him a letter. I was almost done in university, or I think I was done, and I needed to use the place. I had dreams to establish a school and to give scholarships in my mother and father's name to indigent but brilliant children, which I still do. So I asked my lawyer to write him a letter to leave the house. I gave him a year, a notice of a year. You know those wooden furnitures my mom had put there? So you can take everything, but just leave the house. Oh, his children still hold that against me. It's my mother's house. I had a right to do that. So he left. A few years later, he died. His children were young. I got involved. Like I said, Muslim, we had to bury him same day. Yeah, I played my part as a dutiful niece, but that was it. His wife lived a couple of years after him.
The story you wrote in your book, he didn't treat you well.
No, he didn't.
I wonder why he didn't.
You know, come to think of it, let me digress a little. In Colonel Banjo's, one of his letters, Colonel Victor Banjo, one of his letters, he mentioned us. I don't remember the page, 174, 172, I don't remember. In one of his letters to his wife when he was in incarceration, he said, I wonder what is happening to the children of my friend, Brigadier's son. That's how he referred to my dad. I hope that when I get out, if I get out, I will be able to look for them and take care of them so that, you know, life can be a little easier on them. You know how human beings can be. He said that. So, Uncle Bashiru, there's a picture in my book that was taken in London. Uncle Bashiru and his wife, my mom, made sure he got to London, maybe when my dad was serving, I don't know. And Uncle Bashiru held me in the picture. It's in the book. Oh, I was the favorite niece. What happened after my mother died?
What happened to him?
I don't know. I became the house girl. I did all the work in the house.
That was the pain of being an orphan.
Yes. Even from blood.
You kept remembering your mom and dad?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Were you helpless?
You could say that. He used to beat us a lot. We used to have moments of solace during the holidays. Mrs. Olutoye, her children too attended Army Children's School, the Basis Army Children's School, Babatolas, Oluleyes, they're all still my friends. General Akiola's children, name them, Fajobis, they're all still my friends. Now, during the holidays, these people would have agreed amongst themselves who would come and pick us to spend the holidays with them. At least we'll be out of. Mrs. Olutoye would come. I remember the Army Land Rover would bring her. My uncle would disappear, especially when he sees the Army Land Rover outside the compound. He would go for hours. Mrs. Olutoye won't go. She will not leave. And then my uncle would come back. Oh, Mrs. Olutoye said, I came to collect the children so they could spend holidays with us. And then my uncle said, okay. He would call me into the bedroom, like to pack our stuff. And then he would twist my ears. Twist it, rub it first. It would be very hot. Then twist and pull me up with my two ears. I won't make a sound. You know why? Twist my ears all you like. I'm going. At least I'll be away for a couple of weeks. Oh, yeah.
Did you ask him when you grew up why those tortures?
No.
Why didn't you ask him?
You know what? I think God dealt with him in his own way. I won't go into that.
How did your younger brother feel? Was he also dealt with?
I think it was a little easier on him because he was a boy and my uncle's children were boys. It was a little easier. And he was very young. He didn't have any memories. He didn't remember much, you understand? So he probably wasn't a threat to them. I remembered a lot. So I was a threat. You know, I have a feeling that if things had gone on the way they were, he probably would have inherited the house, probably sold it. That's where my school is today, in honor of my mother. Yes.
State Affair.